Welcome back, everyone. Today, I have for you Thermon Rick Holliday, who is a Medicare broker and the principal of TRH Insurance Agency. He has dedicated over 7 years to helping individuals navigate the complexities of Medicare with clarity and ease. With 2 decades of experience working with individuals and businesses across various industries, he's uniquely positioned to assist you. I'm going to let him say more about his area of genius. And for now, I'll just say, welcome, Thermon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, Dr. Denise.
Oh, you're welcome. So glad to have you here.
So happy to be here. And especially this time for me, which leads into our busy season where we're really looking to do as much as we can to educate, advise, and just help people understand the complexities of Medicare, try to solve that puzzle for them.
Say a bit more about that. How do you do that, and who is it that you're helping with it?
That is a great question. So the reality is when people get to roughly 60, 62, that's when that light bulb goes off in their head and they start to believe that it's time for me to consider retirement. And unbeknownst to most, when you do retire, if you don't have a company that's supporting you or a business that you've established to support you, you need to look to the future of your health care. The 3 things that people do stress out the most over as they age are healthcare, taxes, and kind of in that order as well. Because obviously we all want to live in a manner that is with dignity and sustainable, and we want to be able to enjoy our lives and go on all those trips we plan and really attack that bucket list. But in order to do that, we need to be healthy. And
Mm.
so most people put a high priority and emphasis on being healthy. Now, conversely, when they were younger, they didn't really think about that much. You assumed health at that point. But as you age, and for me, I'm an older adult now, as things start, every year goes by, something else either tweaks, breaks, or gets a little more sore. And so with that in mind, healthcare becomes a real high priority for people. So I and the team that we have really focus on educating them on how you transition from your employer group or your business plan into Medicare, because it is a specific type of process. Then
Mhm.
we advise you through that process once we give you that initial education so that you understand what's available, the complexities, the components, so you can mesh those together properly. And then lastly, we enroll you into a plan that makes sense for you. And we follow up as you go on through your life because things change, obviously, and we want to be there to assist you as they change.
How did you get into this line of work?
That is a very wonderful question to ask because it reminds me of my mom. So my mother was in her early 70s. And it's a funny story because she'd come back from a fairly long trip. And when she got back, she was like, "Oh, I'm really tired from this trip. It really wore me out." In actuality, it turned out that she'd had some cancer. And so after the diagnosis was made, it was pretty far along with an advancement, if you will. And so with that, we attacked it. My sister and I, we did what we thought we would do. Let's go and help mom get her back on her feet and prepare for all this. And in doing so, the funny part is that my mom's name is Betty, and people used to refer to her as Betty Etiquette because she always had things lined up perfectly. She had the glasses on the right, the knife was on the left, or however that goes. And she got all those things set up properly. Holidays were immaculate. Things were always wonderful around our home. So I assumed that being that she was of age and she had Medicare, that there may be some glitches that we'd have to handle as far as insurance goes. But obviously, Betty Aiken had it all put together. And so we were able to really focus on my mom's, like her care. We talk about and use the term caregivers, but most caregivers are just supporting you through the rough roads and the rough times. And we were able to help her through that, the transition of moving into a situation where she couldn't do for herself. And so in doing that, our focus was totally there. We didn't have the worries of money or insurability, any of those things. And it was just such a smooth process for her up into her passing. It was just very smooth. And I realized that just like with everything else in my mom's life, she was ahead of the game on that. And most people are. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I'm pretty sure that people have problems inside of their healthcare, understanding how it works, insurability, how these things work, how do you pay for stuff. And I entered into it with the help of some friends, and lo and behold, it was dumbfounding. I mean, 90% of the people I met had no clue. I have a PhD who's a client of mine who's a PhD. Actually has 2 PhDs.
Mhm.
He says, I asked him if I could make the statement that he did. He said, absolutely. And he said, I have these PhDs and I don't have a clue how this works. So I'm like, if you got a guy who's smart as heck and he can't figure it out, those of us who are just out there, I would say, you don't want to rest on your own laurels or try to do it yourself, you need assistance. You should take and get expertise if you can.
One thing that stood out in what you were saying is the fact that in taking care of Betty Etiquette and the fact that she took care of all of this in advance, that is, for us, it is you're helping yourself and you are helping your loved ones because they're not running around trying to figure out what needs to happen because you've already made those decisions and have your ducks in a row already.
Yes. And that's one of the keys when we educate people through our process. We call it a three-pronged process of education, advice, and enrollment. We try to say, look, you need to think beyond just you and your health. You need to think about the health of your family. Oftentimes people don't, they assume, I'll say, that their children are going to be there to help them, but their children are raising their children,
Right.
potentially. Or if I'm a husband, I'm taking care of, I have a wife and kids. Then what if my wife's mom is ill at the same time my mother is? It's kind of like that situation when the holidays arise and you try to figure out whose house we go to, what order are we following? It's like, what order do you follow? Now, for most men, at least for me, I better go take care of my wife's mom first. Mom will understand. But when that circumstance is more urgent or emergent, it's like, how do you make those decisions? Those are the things you do have to plan out. My sister, and one of the reasons that when my mom did become ill, I moved back into the home with my sister and my mother, because my sister, one day I went over, she looked like she hadn't slept for a week. She hadn't eaten for 2 days. And just, I mean, like, it was so like running up and down because she was really, really attentive to my mom. I was like, oh, this is unfair. I am part of this family. So I just quickly moved in the next week and said, okay, I'm here. Let's help. And I can tell you honestly, my mom lived in a 2-story home. I was getting 10,000 steps in probably by noon every day,
Whoa.
running up and down the stairs. It was amazing.
As you started this business and as you've been working this business, what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them?
So you have great questions. So really for me, the challenge was really entering in, trying to understand, how do you process this? How do you meet people? I had been in sales most of my life, so I understood sales components. So that was an issue. And I wouldn't even call this a sales job. If you're a teacher, this is a teacher job. This is an educational job. But again, the real concern or the issue was, how do you meet people? Where do you find them? I mean, the rules of Medicare are such that you can't just sit there and make phone calls, regardless to what happens in the minute. Already, a lot of people breaking the law in that regard. But sending out mail pieces, okay, that's wonderful and fine. But what do I do? So I learned that I had to be more proactive in my attempt to let people know what I do. I had to go to the marketplace. I had to go to community. I had to make myself available to members in the community. And through that, giving back, if you will, I was able to tell people what I do. And that is how the ball started to roll, because initially it was tough sledding. It was like, really like, okay, so I put some signage on my car, or hang a yard sign or a shingle. But after that, what do you really do to let people know? And Dr. Denise, let me tell you this. Most people don't want you to know they're 65. They're like, hey, don't tell anybody. All my girlfriends think I'm 42. Like, okay. And I can't even tell you how many times it happens. So having a referral is something that takes time too, because people only refer when they feel comfortable with the individuals, enough to let them know I actually am 75 or 69 or whatever it is.
Right.
It takes a little time. So you have to be concerned, or I had to be concerned at that point of how I entered into it.
You've already just shared a little bit about how you get these new leads. Anything else about how you get leads and then convert those leads into clients and then keep those clients happy?
Yeah. So the conversion, so it's interesting because obviously there are lead sourcing businesses and opportunities out there all day long, and they constantly bombard my emails and my texts with, oh, here, buy these leads, buy these leads, buy these leads. And in particular, over the last 2 years or so, lead sourcing has become a real issue because some of the techniques and the processes are really poor. And you don't want to be associated with that, following up with someone. And outbound calling, if you will, from me calling you as an individual, is actually not allowable. It's a legal practice in Medicare. So I have to have permission to contact you. And how do I gain that permission? So one of the things I did start doing back when I got in the business was what they call retail kiosking. So I would go to the local CVS or Walgreens, and I'm the guy you see, I'm sitting in there, and I'm just sitting there, and I have a tablecloth and it says, hey, ask me questions about Medicare, or a signage up, something, some kind of signage on my table that just indicates that. And I sit there patiently, and usually I'm messing around with my phone or reading over some material. And people walk by and give you the side eye, like, then you come back by, side eye the next day. And if you're there consistently and long enough, they begin to say, well, what is this? And from there, the rivers are open, if you will, or the waterfall starts to flow, the
Mm.
dams break. It really has been that kind of a situation. And even at that point, you can call them because they allow you to call them, they give you that permission. And once you meet people and you really get to know them, you meet their family. And then next thing you know, those little friendship buttons start popping all up and the seeds start sprouting and you're the community liaison. But you have to really, whether it's in the community physically, it's in a retail scenario where I'm literally like, oh, you know where the toothpaste is? Let me show you. It's right over here. You know, the restrooms in the back, that kind of thing. If you're not open to doing that kind of activity, like at a guerrilla or ground level perspective, it's really a slow road to grow because there's no other way to do it, quite honestly.
I think a lot of the listeners can relate to that. Many of the listeners here at the Automated Coach podcast are coaches, and it's that whether you're doing it through email, social media, whatever you're doing, it's that same idea that in the beginning, strangers are not just going to be walking up to you, hey, let me give you my business. It's that slow process of growing that relationship, even that slow process, you're not even talking to them, but they are seeing you show up consistently. You're sitting there at that table consistently so that when they're ready to come over and ask a question, you're there.
That's it. It's funny because I'll go to a fair, a local community fair, an event, and I'll try to be there as often as possible physically, and I'll be branded. I'll have branded shirts and hats and everything, tablecloths, paraphernalia, always try to be branded just to let people be somewhat aware.
Mhm.
Thing that I do say the most is when you're ready, I'll be here. Whether it's today, tomorrow, 10 years, I'm going to be here. Just to get it in their head that, okay, this guy's not going anywhere. Because I think that's one of people's biggest fears. And like you said, from a coaching perspective, I have coaches and mentors I have to work with as well. And the one thing that they do remind me is that you have to be consistent in the face of the client or the potential client, the prospect. You have to let them know I'm here, I'm stable, I'm going anywhere. And sometimes that costs money. Sometimes it costs time, always energy, but you have to be there and you do have to bring that energy. I found that in all my little personal research and work to try to grow my business, personal branding has become some of a catchword and a phrase that people use a lot. But I can say honestly that having people know who I am and how I work is huge. As you can see, my name is Thermon Rick Holliday. So I'll always answer or say to someone who I'm speaking to is so that they remember me. My name is Holliday. Holliday is spelled with two L's because I am twice as good as the average holiday. And I can't tell you how many times people say, I need that twice as good guy. I'm looking for a double L or it's like, you can't remember Thurman or Rick, but they definitely remember, let me get the twice as good guy.
Yeah,
Everywhere I go, I say that. And that's really become how I personally branded myself in the community.
I think it's so important. Lots of great tips from there. I like that idea of figuring out how to distinguish yourself from everybody else who's doing the same thing so that you are memorable. That's great. Do you use automation in your business? And if so, how?
Oof, man. So yes. And honestly, when I got into business originally and initially, if you will, everything was pencils and paper and tick marks and Excel spreadsheets and entering and entering and entering. And I'll say, thankfully, AI, if I have to use that, but also some of the other aspects of just software as a service that have come into my life have been hugely helpful. So for us, having a book of business or people that are your clients, you need to maintain that and be able to touch them as you need. So having a good CRM is hugely important for my business and something that's functional because I'm old enough to remember ACT and Goldmine and all those other crazy little things. And
Right.
those things are horrible. So from my perspective, they quantified and put things in categories, but that's about it. But today, yeah, go high level, you have just varieties of things out there that are very beneficial to you that you can use all in an effort to give you an easement or a pathway that you can draw down information, process it quickly, move it somewhere. Now with the help of AI, put that on top of it, source it better, be able to generate marketing pieces and such and touch people. The other day, I used one of the automated functionalities that I have, just to reach out to people and ask them, have you had or do you have a new doctor? Do you have new prescriptions? There's some documentation that we have to have every year. I blast that out to my base and it returns with the signed documentation. It's in my CRM. I can quickly gloss over to make sure who has and who hasn't responded to it. So it's been huge with respect to what we do, because otherwise trying to call every individual person can become daunting.
Right. And the time that it would take you to call all those people is time that would be better spent helping this newer person understand which plan that they should go with or whatever else. And that's the beauty of automation, is it allows you to shine in your area of genius while the admin stuff is happening on autopilot in the back end.
Exactly. And to add to that too, the thing that I like the most is one of the new features I'm using is a self-referral tool. So it allows me to send out a request for referral. Then it allows that individual to take that mail piece or however they receive it, because it could be text, email, or other, and send that to individuals that they want. And then those individuals can respond back to me. So it's compliant, it follows and touches all the bases. And it's like something that allows me to either gain reputation or at least acknowledgement and awareness. And then if they wanted to, they can link it to a Google response. So I can get star ratings and other things from it. So it's really a strong tool that we're using now in every aspect of our business. So it's been great.
Something that you just mentioned that I don't even normally talk about, it hasn't even occurred to me, is using automation to stay compliant. Because if you have to do things a certain way, or if you have to in many areas, like if you're working with financial data or whatever else, there's a certain statement that has to be at the bottom of every email. And all of those compliance issues can be addressed easily by using automation. That way you're not worried that something has fallen through the cracks or you've done something that's out of bounds, because the system is handling all of it.
That is so huge in our business in particular, because in this industry, we're dealing with seniors, typically people are just 60s, mid 60s and above. And one of the things that the government, I think, does well is they try to protect people from abuse. And so in order to accomplish that, what they'll do is they ask us now in these last 2 or 3 years now to record all of our conversations when they're centered around some type of questions about plan changes or something to that effect. So I have two direct phone lines that come into us. And in each sense, they all say, hey, this call is being recorded. Just want to make you aware of that. Part of our compliance. And as you said, to the other point, there's a tail to that. I represent 100 companies that offer 125 different plan options. And I have to do all of that and talk about state health insurance programs and all these things, but have that all set up in advance so that it's compliantly set makes it easy for me. And then I can give people the option. They can say, you know what? I don't want to be recorded. Okay, let me cancel that. Hit a button and it's canceled. And then we can take it offline and do other things. But just to have that functionality as opposed to having to state that myself, set up and turn on the recording off and on, it would be too daunting. And again,
Right.
it's too much to think about.
Now, based on your area of expertise, what are 3 tips that you could share with our audience?
That has been something that I think, as I consider where I am and what I'm doing, the things that I gained came from tips that I got from other business owners. So I said one would just make yourself really be detailed and focused and also deliberate about how you brand yourself. So I'm to the point now where I probably only have like 10 items of clothing. And I don't mean that literally, but the reality is that everything that I wear every day has something that says what I do or who I am. I go out and I have that. The other day, a lady recognized the fact. She says, you know, you always have this button on. I was like, yeah, always. And she says, where do I get one of those? I'm like, oh, you have to order it. I had to tell the whole story. But we were at an industry event. She was another agent. But the thing about it, though, is that people recognize me. If you can't see my face or whatnot, you can see me coming from far off because I'm adorned the same way. When I'm out in the world and driving my cars, I have magnets I can put on a car if I'm switching vehicles or if I'm even in a rental, I'll throw them on the car just so they can have that consistent thing. I have them with all my team. They all have the magnets on their cars as well. So we're recognizable in that sense. I guess really personal branding and making sure you're deliberate about it is one of the keys for me. The other tip probably would be to understand that although people want your service, they want to know and like and trust you before they use your service.
Yes.
And like I said earlier, this isn't a sales job because, like, hey, how are you doing? Great. Okay. Well, step one of this is like, we don't do that. We just simply have a conversation, kind of let people know in that first opening remark or the opportunity is that I'm a good person, someone you can trust. Let me tell you the story about my mom. Let me tell you how I got in this business. Let me tell you why I want to serve you and why it's important to me. And also let me let you know that if you pay me, if I get paid or however, conversation is not the key. The key is educating you, helping you learn because maybe you'll refer me at some point later. So it's really a matter of just understanding that this isn't all about just you gaining something is you have to give. If you can give, you can grow. And so personal branding, giving so that you can grow, those are two huge components. And I think finally, it's kind of like what we referred to before is making that decision whenever it is to just do that, to decide to be in this business. A lot of people, I don't want to talk about anybody particularly, but I know a lot of people that, oh, I'm going to do this today. And they go out and spend 10, 20,000 on something. Next thing you know, it's sitting in the garage in a bag, whatever that thing is, whether it's an actual office or boxes of stuff, because they weren't committed to it. It's like my decision to come in this was like the poker term. I'm all in. Like, okay, I'm all in this business. This is what I'm going to do. This is why I'm going to do it. So I guess even deeper dive to that point is do your homework, do your due diligence on what you're attacking. If you want to be a coach, do your due diligence on why you want to be a coach and who you want to coach and where you want to coach. For
Yes.
me, this business is one I can do from anywhere in the world. It allows me to do it for as long as I can walk or talk. And even when I can't walk, I can still do this business because of technology and things we do. And then it's a business that continually compensates me for the good work I've done as long as the individual I'm working with wants to be part of my book. So these are things that I know and I identified early when I started this, like before I came into it, to know that this was the right fit. It's not something where I have to be young and strong for the remainder of my life in order to accomplish it.
Mm.
So those are my three pillar tips I would say that I'm going to lead on.
That last one about being all in requires understanding what all in means, which you talked about. I think, fortunately and unfortunately, with a field like coaching, technically, because it's not regulated, you don't need to be licensed. You could just wake up and say, I'm going to be a coach, and now I'm a coach. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you understand what coaching is, that you understand how to get clients, that you understand how best to serve, you understand how to position yourself. So there's a lot that goes into it. And so it requires that education, that understanding, that application in order to make sure that you are positioning yourself in a way that's going to attract clients and that you're actually able to serve them. So yeah, it's not just, well, I'm calling myself that, so that's all I need to do.
Yeah. And it's funny because you'll go somewhere, you'll be at a networking event or group, and someone will tell you they're coaching. You're like, okay, how much experience do you have in that industry or that business? Oh, I just started yesterday. Okay, great. All right. I'm going to go talk to these people here, So your point is well taken because it is really interesting how people decide to do things. And
Yes.
business coaching is a business. If you go into it all in, is not something where you expect a check. You have to go earn that money. You have to work.
Right.
It's farming. Like they said, planting the seed and harvesting, all that stuff. It's work. So the harvest comes later, but you got to do the hard labor prior to reaping that harvest. And most people really, especially in the last 30 years, I'd say, they want to just go do some work and get a check on a weekday.
Mm, mm.
And that's not commonplace anymore. And I have three sons and I told them all, I don't care if you become an insurance agent or not, but I do believe that you need to determine to set a vocation for yourself, something that you can control your income, provide a service to people, and they can seek you out for that service because just going to get a check is going the way of the dinosaur. It's getting harder and harder and harder to find those, no matter what the governmental numbers say. It's just hard to do.
If you are an excellent coach, which many people are, that doesn't mean that you excel in all aspects of running a business, which is why I do what I do, because there's so many pieces to running a business that have nothing to do with coaching. So sending out an email newsletter, having a lead magnet with follow-up emails, all of that is important for a successful business, but it doesn't mean that because you're a coach, you know how to do all this other stuff. And so I think another part of that all in is understanding where do you excel and what are the things that you need to have a successful business, but are not in your gift zone. And so you need to hire people to do, rather than trying to learn how to do all these different things yourself. You need to find somebody to do that for you.
And you have to be prepared for that too, because I think that's one of the things that people don't realize is the cost. There's all these different theories of cost, sunk costs and all, but the cost of the preparation, the cost of understanding that I don't have this strength of talent, I may need to outsource it. Well, when people say, okay, that's going to cost you this amount, then, you know what, maybe I'll try it myself. I'll YouTube it, I'll figure it out. But like in most situations, neither do you have the thing that let me make this one point. The thing that a business owner or individual who goes out on their own, hangs a shingle, does something for themselves, will find out most specifically and most earnestly is the most important thing that we have is time. Everything else is irrelevant.
Yes.
When people say time is money, I know those people haven't really done anything for themselves because they don't understand. Time is so much more valuable than money. Because if I had all the time in the world, I can do whatever the heck I want. But guess
Right.
time is not available like that. There is a certain amount of it that you have on this planet in a day, in your work life, in your work week. And if you don't use that properly, boom, that's where the issues happen. And that's where people get tired, burn out, and go crazy is in their misuse of time. Time management is something that everyone needs to become really knowledgeable about when they enter into business. How do you manage the time? Because it could be, what if I pay Dr. Denise to do XYZ and help me learn these things, then that saves me time. And I can do that and focus in this other area. Or if I pay this assistant, if I bring on an employee, this is what they account, and that saves me time. I don't have to do that digging and work. And that is, I mean, I pay people and sometimes the checks are hard to write, but the reality is it's a blessing because I don't have any time in the world to do anything that they're doing. I have to have it for that. So that's the key.
Which leads to my second to last question is that our listeners here at the Automated Coach podcast are action takers. What is one action you would encourage our listeners to take?
An investment in your education. And by that, I mean, whether it's, we can't rest on the laurels, time does not stand still, and things are always changing. So right now, there's a lot of opportunity to gain knowledge in this area of AI. I would be all at every hour that you have available that you can do some sourcing or some knowledge growth in the AI area, I would do it. I've been in what I call my YouTube University on AI for, can't even tell you, I've signed up for some master classes to some other things just to have a good understanding of it. AI for me is really a strong focus in the healthcare industry because it's trying to automate some of the things that were rudimentary or that were time consuming for those experts and those professionals. And so if you can take those things away, have some functionality do it, it just frees up more time. So these are things that I need to be aware of so that when my clients want to have knowledge or understanding of something, I can speak to it real clearly and succinctly. And then also I can use it to help my clients, as I hopefully am doing today. That's probably key, that education.
And then finally, where can our listeners find you online? Because I know they're going to want to stay in touch with you.
Please find me. No. So my URL, my website address is trhinsurance.com. So Thermon Rick Holliday or trhinsurance.com. When you go there, you can find all kinds of resources and information. We do speaking, we have workshops, a lot of information. We're really, I don't want to fully say proud, but we're satisfied and happy about what the website allows you to see and do. It's a great resource. Again, you can always search for us. Again, Holiday is spelled with 2 L's because I am twice as good as the average Holiday. So when you Google Rick or Thermon Holliday, no matter how you spell it, you'll find me there, my beautiful shining little face. And then lastly, what we are doing is through the website. And then if you reach out to us directly, we can be reached at 626 area code 542-7080, 626-542-7080. And if you reach out to us, we do have a 5-point e-document, I like to call it. It's a guide, an e-guide that we send out to everyone free. And it speaks to the pre-work, the things you need to do in order to prepare yourself, the personal values you need to consider for yourself, the financial situations the paperwork that you need to process, the planning you need to do just to enter into Medicare properly. And then also to have it set in such a manner that as you move through it, it's going to be smooth. So it's that transition component. I don't know that there's anything else out there that really speaks to all these points. Most people speak to one or two kind of as an aside, but this document allows you to see all the key points that you do need to have consideration for before you go into it. It's our Medicare resource guide. It is available through the website free. You can call us for it or text or however you like to communicate, you'll find it. But we definitely want to get that out to people so they can understand. This is something you need to take time to look at and understand better.
And actually, I have one additional follow-up question. At what age should somebody start this whole process?
That is key. So I have a cousin, wonderful cousin. She's great. And she was 59 talking about, how can I do this at 60? I was like, no, you have to wait. So the answer to that real clearly is at age 65, everyone who's a citizen, and that kind of goes back and forth based on the government, but everybody who's a citizen right now, paid into the Social Security bucket for Medicare, can enter into Medicare. It can become your primary health source. And I say it like that because most people don't realize, even if you have a retirement plan and it provides you some sort of health care in the future, it's not a guarantee because retirement plans are based on the needs of the business. And if the needs of the business change, that retirement plan changes. So the government doesn't consider retirement plans as creditable. And by that, we mean something that's equal to or better than Medicare. And so the only resource that we have as Americans for our healthcare as we move into the future is Medicare. But I tell people all the time, there aren't any options. I mean, Bezos, all these super rich dudes all have Medicare or will enter into Medicare. Why? Because it is a valid, solid, great way to take care of your health as you move forward. That is guaranteed. There are no other options for you. People think I'll just pay for it myself. No, you won't. Because if you think Cobra is expensive, wait till you see what individual healthcare costs. I think you're 65 plus years old.
Right.
It's guaranteed for people. You can use it, go into it. Age 65 is when you enter in officially, if you will. That's when the gun goes off in the race and you're able to start. Age 64 or the 3 months prior to your 65th birthday is when you need to have read my e-guide, understand what you want to do in there. So we typically tell people at age 64, now it's time to start that watch and that clock and really do the homework to get yourself set up because, and I'll end with this, the government will give you a benefit. Medicare is a benefit. Some people call it various things, but it is truly a benefit. And because of that, the government says, look, we can only give you one benefit at a time. So if you have a health savings account, other type of taxable or qualified tax vehicles, you can't have those in conjunction with Medicare. It's kind of a misnomer. You have to understand how they actually work together. It's not that you can't have it, you can't fund it the same way. So the government says, we're going to give you this healthcare break, if you will, cost-wise. But in order to get that, you can't have anything else that has a taxable advantage for you. Your tax advantage programs and accounts need to cease in order for you to implement Medicare. And then the last part of that is, regardless of what your neighbor, cousin, everybody thinks, Medicare is the best health insurance you're ever going to have. And it is weird that I can say that because it's a governmental program, but it truly is. There's nothing that acts like it or works like it. And that's where our education and advice come into play to help people understand that. And once they do, you'll talk to people on Medicare and they're like, oh, I'm happy. Everything's great. And they're vacationing and doing other stuff. And it worldwide coverage. It works in a way that really people are kind of dumbfounded by. It's an amazing program.
Glad you took the time to explain that extra. Hopefully our listeners are going to take advantage of what you had to offer. This was really educational. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, Thermon Rick Holliday with 2 L's. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Denise. Always a pleasure to work with you. Thank you so much.